Awesome. Good. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thanks. I was just saying to Jake before, I just loved the movie so much.
Awesome.
I watched it. I watched it last night, and I don't know what I was expecting from it, but I kind of read the premise, and I thought, oh, I've seen movies like this before. It turns out I've not seen anything like that before.
I think Andrew, the director, would be very happy to hear you say that. I think that was the goal.
So my first question, I mean, there's probably a whole variety of reasons, but what was it that initially attracted you to this character, this world, and just this whole project, really?
Oh man, I mean, just reading the script initially. I mean, I remember thinking to myself, I need to do everything in my power to make sure I get to be a part of this, because the vision is so clear on the page. When I was reading it, and there's all this very descriptive, very rich sort of language, and all these like camera motions sort of written into the script very organically. And so, reading that, I had a pretty clear sort of visualization as to like what the film could look like already, just having read the script. And that was really appealing to me. And just the fact that the script itself was so interesting and so new and so fresh, and I hadn't read anything like it ever. And the character of Faye, particularly for actresses, like does not come along very often. So I knew I had to jump on that, if I could. And so I felt like it was very important to me to do everything in my power to get to be a part of it.
Yeah, because I mean, it sounds silly because this shouldn't be a thing. But as someone who I'm sure reads a lot of scripts, you'll probably agree that sadly it is a thing. But was it quite refreshing that you read a script here of a character that wasn't sort of pining after the male lead? Because I mean, that's something because I kept thinking like, oh, there's going to be a romance here, and then realized that I'm so conditioned through storytelling and cinema that I expected something that had no reason to exist, really.
No, you're totally correct. That's like one of my hugest pet peeves in film, is a forced sort of like heterosexual romantic subplot. And I just think it's like so annoying and so pointless and so overdone. And so when I was reading the script, I was like, oh man, it would just ruin this whole thing if like somehow for some reason Everett and Faye like kiss or, got together or something at the end. That'd be so stupid. And then I got to the end and I was like, oh my God, it's just a completely like wholesome platonic like friendship. Oh my God, like they never have to. Oh wow. I was like, and Faye isn't spending the entire, I mean, I did play her sort of with the very sort of idea that she might have a sort of crush, she might admire sort of Everett very much in that way because he's older and he has more knowledge, and he's already independent, and he's a radio DJ and he wants to move out of the town. And so I felt like, yeah, Faye would probably maybe have a small crush or maybe look up to him for that, but I didn't want to have like the I didn't want her sort of pining after Everett to be the forefront of any of her character. And the fact that was never even a discussion, never even an option, that never even happened, that was like one of the most refreshing things about working on the film ever.
But despite that, I did speak to Jake earlier, and he was just saying how well the two of you sort of got on, and obviously your rapport and the characters' relationship is still obviously very important to the film working.
Absolutely.
It sounds like you two just sort of hit it off right from the word go, which must have been such a relief for you, because I'm assuming that isn't always the case.
No, it's not always the case, and people sort of sometimes take for granted how much that often isn't the case. That people, you can't force people to get along, and you can't expect to toss two people in a room, and have them be best friends. But it just worked out really well that Jake and I, really vibed, when we first met. And then also he's a wonderful like scene partner, and getting to rehearse with him and sort of, watch him build his character and, make choices in scenes that sort of, really affected me and like sort of gave me something wonderful to feed off of. I think back and forth between us was really, really, all those scenes are really special because we got to really rehearse them and really spend a lot of time sort of talking about them and talking about those beats and like making sure that we were both on the same page, and we, rehearsed and ran lines constantly. And, also we just, got along, and we were in this tiny, weird, small town together without a car, and in this tiny little weird hotel. And so, we had nothing else to do when we weren't doing this. So we would go to this like rinky dink little outlet mall, and we would go to like, this like fast food restaurant to try to like, have something to like do. And so we had all these very interesting little adventures in small town Texas, while we were also like shooting this really fun, fulfilling, satisfying film.
Yeah, because I mean, also the dialogue is there's such a rhythm to the dialogue. It almost it feels like it's one of those kind of scripts where you can't miss a beat. You kind of have to. It's got a real kind of almost like a choreographed kind of dance number between two characters.
Well, yeah, it forces you to like definitely pay attention because if you don't, it's gonna go right past you. All the dialogue and stuff. You're right.
So how was that to kind of learn all the lines and also just to do the takes? Because some of these takes are really long, which is quite rare in film.
Well, I also attest, the fact that I don't think that I had, a huge amount of trouble with it because we got to rehearse so much before we ever set foot in front of a camera. Jake and I, and Andrew, we just had a lot of nights and days where we would just, workshop these scenes over and over and just collaborate and try to, feel them out creatively and stuff like that. And so by the time Jake and I actually got to set, we had really gotten the opportunity to sort of like sit deep into our characters and like get the words and embody them and like just no I don't know, our lines weren't really like something I don't think that I was at least really thinking about by the time we ended up shooting. And I think that's why they come out so effortlessly and quickly, and they have this like fun rhythm to them, is because Jake and I essentially got to goof off and have fun on set because we'd spent a lot of time doing the heavy work already. And so when we finally got to shoot, we just had a lot of fun, and we had I think that fun sort of definitely bleeds into the film itself.
And how much fun was it just being a part of a film that's set in the 50s? Because it is such a we just romanticize over that era as audience members. I was saying to Jake earlier, I almost don't feel like it's real. It feels like something Hollywood created because it feels so indebted to like cinema and stuff. But what was it like being in the outfits, having the kind of instruments and all the kind of set and stuff like that was recreating such a kind of sort of precious time in history, really?
Yeah, no, it was wonderful. It was actually, another thing that attracted me to the project in the first place is I had never gotten to do a period piece. It had been like one of my goals to do a period piece. I'd really wanted to sort of dig into like just, a different, completely remove myself from, time and place. And I don't know, that was like one of the funnest aspects for me was, learning all of this, defunct technology and like dressing in this like very sort of specific way and speaking in this very sort of specific way. I think it really helped me like do a lot of the character work, and it really made a lot of it a lot more fun. It was like really fun to get to sort of disappear, from myself, divorce myself like completely from the look of the character, to really sort of get to like dig into just like creating this like person from scratch. I think the era kind of helped me do that a lot because I got to add all these different aspects, all these costume aspects and all these sort of skills that I had to learn because it's not technology we use anymore. And I think a lot of that really just helped overall my performance.
And we were speaking before about how obviously the screenplay to this was very sort of specific, quite particular, and obviously you had to follow it like every kind of beat. But you have worked before with in Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is like one of the most famous kind of antitheses to that, which is that it's completely kind of on the spot and stuff. Just as a huge fan of that show, I just wanted to know if you remember your sort of what that experience was like for you and what Larry was like to work with on that show.
Oh, I do remember, and I love talking. That's like one of my favorite sort of roles to talk about, or my favorite topic to talk about. Because, when I was a kid, I was a huge Seinfeld fan, and then I eventually became a huge Curb fan before I ever got on the show. And so when I actually got to be on the show, I was really excited, and I was really, I don't know, it was really fun. I love improv. I feel like I don't get to do it often enough. I really love improv. I have so much fun doing it. And, just because of Larry David's sort of, reputation and the character that he sort of, has on the show, I didn't expect him to like really speak to me at all. I was like, he doesn't have to. And also like, he's probably not going to. But I was shocked. I was like 11 years old. He like sat down. He like asked me like about the book I was reading. He asked me about like, what I thought about it. He was like really like personable and nice. And I was like, wow, that's like actually the opposite of what I expected. Okay, cool. And so I don't know, it was overall a really positive experience. When I finally saw the episode, I thought it was really funny. My parents, maybe not as much, but I thought it was really funny. So it was a wonderful experience. And I wish I could, do more things like that again, improv and comedy and stuff like that. I think it's really fun.
Brilliant. Well, actually, I've just run out of time, so that was my final question. But thank you so much for speaking to me.
No, thank you. Thank you so much.
Maybe, hopefully, next time they'll be able to do this in real life if we're all allowed to.
Yes, that'd be great.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys. Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey You Guys!